Hello, everybody. Welcome to this is a kind of Sonic Talk presentation special. We're very fortunate to be here with Tom Wolfe from GForce Software, and that's because today, or roundabout today, this week, give or take a day or so, is the release of the new GForce Software Tom Oberheim endorsed SEM, and this is to celebrate Tom Oberheim's birthday, the venerable old man of synthesis, who is very precious to everybody. I know to Dave and to the guys at GForce. Anyway, Tom, how are you? You well?
Yes, doing very well, thank you, Nick. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm back from holiday, feeling a little refreshed, and also, but a bit rusty at the same time. You know, they go hand in hand. So, Tom, what's your role in this within GForce? It's sound design, and what do you do?
Yeah, so mostly I've been doing sound design. So I've been doing a lot of the curation of the presets for the SEM. So that's included, creating new presets for it and gathering presets from other sound designers as well.
Oh, right. Okay. It's interesting, isn't it? Because the SEM is, I came to the SEM very, very late on. I mean, I was aware of it, but I always seemed to discount it because it always looked too simple somehow. And it always sort of had this, and also not only that, but you only ever saw them in boxes and they were quite hard to kind of mount and things. So the actual hardware, I've had less of. I think the first time it happened, first time I actually got to play with one was when Technomad Simon Forsyth brought a two-voice over, and it absolutely blew my mind how good it sounded. And it's one of those things that's just, it's like a timeless classic in many ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a very simple synth, but from a historical context, it kind of sparked everything that, then became all of the Oberheim synths, such as the 2-voice, the 4-voice, the 8-voice. And it's just got a really iconic sound. And as you say, it's a really simple synth. So if you look at it without any knowledge of what a SEM is, it's kind of like, well, is that it? But then you hear it and it's just, it's got this kind of mind-blowing, unique sound that just has so much weight to it.
So obviously I looked at the OBE, which is the 8-voice version of this. Are they essentially the same thing? Because it's quite an unusual thing to release just a single module, and it's not polyphonic, it's just one voice. You're really, really going sort of true to the analog heritage here.
Absolutely. So as you say, the OBE is 8 voices of a SEM. The SEM here is 1 voice and it is monophonic. Now, the reason we've done that is because, the OBE and the 8-voice, the original 8-voice, is such a powerful synthesizer. You have, rather than, your classic polyphonic synths where you've got, one set of controls and then you can play chords. With OBE, you've actually got control over all of the 8 synths. So I think in OBE, you essentially have 24 oscillators that you could, if you wanted, tune separately. So it's a very kind of mind-blowing synth. Now, obviously, in the original 8-voice, that was incredibly complicated to actually program because you'd have to do it all manually. And in OBE, we've managed to kind of simplify that quite a lot. But we do obviously realise that it can be a little bit intimidating. So we wanted to make something that was a little bit simpler and people could just dive in with. And we wanted to keep it true to the kind of original ethos of the SEM, in that it is a very simple synth. You can just dive in straight away and create these incredibly powerful sounds within minutes.
So have you, presumably, have you had your hands on the actual hardware as well? So you kind of are aware of where some of the sweet spots are. Would that be true to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Fortunately, Dave at GForce Software, he has got one of the SEMs. So we were able to play about with that. And actually, I did have it sat here in my studio for a little while. And I was able to kind of use it as well to create some of the presets in here. So I could, create them
on prototype it.
Exactly. That was it. And kind of play about with it. And as you say, find the sweet spots. And then I could bring them into the software SEM. And, I could kind of augment them a little bit and change them slightly.
So we've got the SEM here. It's, I suppose the thing is you've done some sound design on it. I'm not 100% familiar. It's not a synth that I know inside out. Although the component parts. What GForce have done. They haven't just modelled the original. Which is quite ironic in a way, because when Tom was in the historical video that you've done, there's a bit where Tom says, "Oh, I can change all of these things," and Roger Lynn says, "No, leave it exactly as it is." And you haven't done that. So yeah, how come you get to do it and he didn't? Because you added another LFO and another oscillator. But yeah, I guess So how did you get away with it?
It's a very good question. I think the reason is actually because we created OBE and then Tom Oberheim heard it and, went, wow, that's an 8 voice. So we'd kind of done it before we actually, before he became aware of it. But it opens up the actual software quite a lot. So, in my screen here, so we've actually got this open and extended mode. If I click this tab here, that is basically a SEM.
Yeah.
So we've got a little bit of extra functionality on the left-hand side, but what you've got here is your 2 VCOs, your VCF, your 2 envelopes, and an LFO rate. And that is your incredibly basic SEM, and that is if you wanted to use it in the classic, in the classic sense of using it, if you were going to use an original, if you wanted it to be the authentic experience, this is the page that you'd use. But then we've kind of got this extra functionality which is sort of hidden by default, and then you can open it up and use it. And it opens up the sound design possibilities quite a lot. So we've got a 3rd VCO, which we can use that as an audio rate oscillator, or we can use it, for FM. So we can, create FM sounds, which obviously wouldn't have been possible on the original SEM. Or you can use it as an extra LFO as well. And we've also added extra controls such as, velocity controls and aftertouch, and even control over the LFO. Because I believe, I could be wrong here, but if I remember right, in the original SEM, you only had I think it was a triangle wave, but you didn't have control over the shape of your LFO. So we've now kind of added control over that as well. So you can kind of choose between triangle, sine, a ramp, and then half square, full square, and a noise sample and hold type thing as well.
So I suppose that we should probably get into a little bit of sound, because obviously this is what this is all about. So your preset, what's your best preset, Tom? What's your favourite preset?
That's a very good question. Whether it's even my preset or not, I mean, I absolutely love preset number 1 here, which isn't my preset, I'll have to say. But it just, it shows off the sound of the SEM so well. So. Just hear that really nice resonant filter. As you can see, we've got the resonance on the filter almost to the top, so it just gives us this huge filter sweep. And that is the thing about the SEM, that's kind of the iconic sound, that really beefy filter. Even if you crank the resonance all the way up, you've still got so much weight to the synth. It doesn't get brittle like a lot of synths do.
That's interesting. It's interesting, isn't it? Because at the time, I suppose it was going up against the Mini, wasn't it? Really, that was kind of perhaps its natural comparison. Whereas obviously what happened with the ladder filter on the Moogs is you start bringing the resonance in and all the bottom end goes away, even though there might have been a bit more to begin with. Whereas I suppose the SEM doesn't have that because it's a 2-pole filter. You've got a lot more usable low end across a range of filter sounds. I suppose that was probably what helped it to a degree become so iconic. There's that. But you could still get really subby stuff as well, can't you? Because that's quite a big. Because we've got effects on that as well. So let's maybe just have a few more sounds, and then we can discuss what I might be able to try when I'm doing my patch flip.
Okay, let's have a look for a nice bass. Right. See if I can find it. In fact, actually, I know what preset I'll get up. So there's a preset. This is one that I did called Gut Punch. So we've got this really kind of pounding, almost kick style bass, which has a lot of kind of low end weight to it.
Nice one. Have we got the same effects that are in the full OBE?
Yeah, so we've got a delay and we've got a reverb. So you have they're slightly slimmed down. So the delay, I believe, is now a digital style delay rather than analog delay, which we have in OBE. And then we also have the reverb as well, which again, we've kind of slimmed down the controls a little bit just to make it a little bit more manageable.
Right. I remember the reverb actually sounds really good on the OBE, so I'm hoping we've still got this. Yeah, really nice. Well, let's have another couple of sounds, and then maybe we can have a look at some interesting, because like I say, it's very deceptively simple, but there's quite a lot of audio rate and cross-mod stuff in the configuration that we now have, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll show you something that you wouldn't actually be able to do on an actual SEM. So this is a preset called a dreamy sine. On an original SEM, you wouldn't have had a sine wave. So this kind of, uses our third oscillator here, which we have got sine waves on it. But this just kind of shows you the really nice sound that you can get out of it.
Nice.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
there goes that, and there goes that reverb.
Exactly. So that's kind of a really good example. And I think actually the next preset here is a good example of that kind of FM stuff that you were saying about. So this is a preset called Bells in the Tower.
Yeah, that's kind of more Prophet sort of sounding, isn't it? Really, that would be something I would think that would of that era. So I'm going to go away and play around with this a little bit, and this will form another part of the video. What should I try? What things that nooks and crannies should I explore that perhaps aren't immediately obvious?
Yeah, well, like you say, it is almost deceptive because although it's simple, we've still somehow managed to get about just over 400 presets in it, which from a mono sim is, pretty insane. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really love from the SEM, and this is something that you don't have in OBE as well, is control over the VCO2 portamento. So we've got a global portamento control, and that basically sets all three oscillator portamentos.
Right.
And then we've got this offset just for VCO2. So that means you can set all three. And then if you set this into the negative value, you'll get less on VCO2. And if you set it into the positive value, you'll get a higher portamento time on VCO2. Now, of course, this can be really cool, especially if you use it when the oscillator is hard synced, because you get these really nice kind of sweeping harmonics. So let's just kind of set that up a little bit. Let's set up a pulse. So we've got our portamento, but then we can set different times. But of course, this means that we can then get that nice hard sync going. So if I switch the hard sync on,
a selective sync almost. It's not because often with a sync it's that classic kind of, but this only happens because you've got note priority issues as well. It's sort of a more playable sync. That's interesting.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Nice. Okay. Anything else I should explore?
That is a very good question. So the other thing I would say is to explore the kind of FM possibilities with our VCO3. So if we just have, let's set that up to a pulse. So then what you can do, we've got this set. So LFO rate is set to off. So that means we're controlling this oscillator, in audio rate. So if I turn that on now, we get a sine wave. I can then set that, sawtooth wave. I can then set that up to sine. But then, of course, I can use that to control my VCO1. So if we set this to VCO3 and then turn it up on our frequency.
Nice. And I suppose can you route that audio rate to the filter as well, so you can get the filter to talk, I suppose, can't you, if you want?
Yeah. So we've got VCO3 here. So yeah, just set that switch there. And of course, you can set it to different wave shapes as well.
Interesting formant sort of sounds coming out there. I'll have to play around with that, definitely.
Yeah, Yeah, so it opens up the sound design possibilities of it a lot from just having the two original VCOs. But of course, we did want to keep it nice and simple. So that's why all of this stuff is kind of hidden in the back panel. And if you want to use it, you can. But if you don't want to use it, then you've still got that kind of, really simple SEM that you can just dive straight into and create these, warm but basic sounds.
Did you say something about a sequencer as well in this? Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the original SEM was created to be, an accompaniment for the DS2 sequencer that Oberheim created. And the idea for that was, there's a bit, you mentioned the video already where, the interview with Tom Oberheim talking about the SEM. And I absolutely love a quote in that. I think he says something on the lines of, they designed the SEM to be the absolute minimum synth that you could have that was worth a damn. And that's perfect because they essentially created it to use with the DS2 sequencer. And in the DS2 sequencer, you would just sequence these kind of simple bass lines or whatever it was. And then you could use your ARP 2600 or your Mini Moog to noodle away and kind of play to it. And it would just essentially be your accompaniment. So obviously, including a sequencer in this SEM was actually quite important to us because it added the functionality that you quite likely would have bought a SEM for when it was originally released. So over here, we've got if I get up our original preset again. So over here on the left, we've got our arpeggiator.
Yeah.
So as well as the sequencer, we've got an arpeggiator. If we then turn the mode over to sequence 1, we've got our sequencer. If we open this tab, this is where our sequencer is hiding.
Got you.
So all we can, what we can do with this is basically we've got two 32-step sequences. You select between sequence 1 and sequence 2 using the ARP mode knob there, and you just hit record, play in some notes, and you can add rests, or you can hold notes, and then when you're finished, hit the record button again, and now it will play. And that will transpose across the key well.
So that's triggered from a transpose on the keyboard, right?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. So it's essentially recording in the actual, intervals that you are playing between your notes.
A classic step sequencer. It's, that it's not real-time record, it's just, but that's cool. And are those sequences saved with patches or are they separate?
Yeah, they're saved with patches. So we've got a whole load of sequence patches in the actual SEM as well, which are all kept under sequences bit here. I think we've got about 50 different sequences in there that you can choose from. And if you want to save your own presets as well, of course, it will store your sequencer information.
And can you load these sounds into, because I know you can save individual modules in the OBE, can you load these SEM patches into a kind of more polyphonic scenario within OBE if you wanted to bring them in?
Yes, you can. So we've now updated OBE so that if you want to open presets from the SEM in OBE, then you can do exactly that. So you can essentially use the SEM as a kind of scratch pad, essentially, for OBE if you wanted to, and create these kind of sounds in here where you've got this nice kind of simple layout, clean and easy to look at. And then if you then want to turn that into polyphonic, you can just load that up in OBE.
So this is available now, obviously, possibly a couple of days before this video shows up. Are there any deals and stuff, introductory offers, or do we not have that information yet?
Yeah, there is. So it's going to be $29.99 in GBP plus VAT for an intro period, and then it's going to be going up to $49.99 after that as well. Right.
Okay. Well, also, happy birthday, Tom. It's a great thing. I'm now going to go away and have a bit of a noodle on this just to see what I can find. Tom, thanks so much for showing us around. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I'm now in front of my laptop where I'm looking at the Oberheim SEM, which I've downloaded. This is version 1. Basically, what I've done here is I'm running this in standalone mode. So it's just a standalone app. It's pretty straightforward. One thing that you probably want to, they might not have mentioned, and it might be something that I'm sure took quite a lot of work. This is now a scalable, because I'm obviously on a Retina display on this M1. So basically, that's about as wide as I can get it on the screen. But I can go bigger. It's just obviously that's it for now. But nice little feature that perhaps they didn't make much of. I'm pretty sure this is quite a big deal. One of the things that many plugin manufacturers struggle with is making completely scalable UIs. Anyway, I thought I'd mention that. So I'll start with a little bit of patch flipping. I wanted to let's just go to some basses because I reckon there's some good stuff here. So we've got a big mono bass. I just wanted to get some of this massive, because the one thing I noticed about the OBE, which is obviously eight voices of this, even in a mono mode, these oscillators are pretty large. So here's a few more basses. I'll just flip through a few of these. Hopefully that's going to come across on your over YouTube. Obviously, I'm not going to be showing any pads or anything, but the thing that is interesting about this is, obviously, as we said in the first part of the video, you can save these patches and then load them into OBE if you've already got that for kind of 8-voice action. I'm just going to come to some sounds that I made. Let me see. This one I really quite like. This is what I called Fox bass. It's very. It reminded me a little bit of that kind of Benge John Fox. And I created. It's got a really nice touch sensitivity. And when I hit it hard, I've actually got velocity going to the noise. So on this parameter here, and I've got obviously a bit of delay, a bit of reverb. Let's bring that off, and you can. Yeah, I like that one. While I'm here, let's have a look. I've got a couple more sounds here. Oh yeah, we talked about making the mod wheel and using audio rate mod. So what I've got here is VCO 3, and that's going. I'm using that to modulate the filter frequency. And yes, I've gone for that massive reverb. I know I can't help myself, but what I've done also is I've mapped the mod wheel. You can see that wiggling around there to the depth. So. So there's all sorts of really interesting sort of little harmonic spots here. And I'm using that really rather tasty reverb. So I've got VCO frequency right up high, so I think that's like plus 24, and that's modulating via square wave the frequency of the VCO. But I'm also using a bit of aftertouch to the filter, so I can just pick out some of those nice sweet spots. Yeah, like that. It's got a kind of quite a lot of interesting harmonics, and using that FM vibe. I've also got, have I got another one here? Let's have a look. So I've got this one here called Super Styling, which I've started off. Let's go Super Styling, which is kind of like a nod to the Groove Armada track, and this is just a sort of essentially a square wave based on VCO1. But what I've done again is I've got VCO 3 here, and I'm in sawtooth mode, and I'm modulating the pulse width via VCO 3 at sort of audio rate, which creates some interesting vibes, and then adding VCO2 in. Let's drop that down, and then I think if I bring in some quite interesting stuff with VCO3 doing that audio rate business. I've just got a little bit of delay on there and a bit of reverb. And again, a bit of aftertouch on there. Anyway, let's flip a few more presets. I've actually done a couple more. That's Talk to Me and a sad reverb. This is using that portamento on VCO2. And tuning all the VCOs different values. One thing that's neat, you right click and you get full semitones, and then you can just do micro adjustments without holding down the right mouse. Anyway, let's have a look at some of their presets. They've got a bunch of these, which are really cool. Let's have a look at some plucks. One thing that you can do is you could drive the SEM harder and then that's nice, like that. Oh, that's pretty. Let's have a look, see if we can mess around with that. I like the fact that we can add the velocity, because again, this is the extended mode, so if I take that out, I mean, why wouldn't you use that? Again, let's take the reverb and oh, nice. Let's have a look. Sweeps and swell. Oh, let's have a look at some sequences. Very nice. Still, again, it's got a really nice low end stuff going on. Some more textures, interesting. Some more. Great job of modelling that filter. I mean, no wonder that Tom Oberheim has actually kind of given this the nod. this is the aftertouch on the LFO route. Nice. We'll look at some more stuff. Perk. Oh yeah, that sounds a bit like the Simmons drums, doesn't it? That's like Tainted Love, isn't it? What other effects have we got here? Some bells. This is stuff you couldn't do on the original SEM, but because we got a bit of... Actually quite... Let me bring it down a bit. Let's make that velocity. Yeah, some nice stuff there. So anyway, I just wanted to flip through those patches just to give you an idea of how good these oscillators sound, whether it's in the hardware or this emulation by GForce. As we know, Tom Oberheim's birthday. Happy birthday, Tom. Maybe today, maybe a couple of days ago, depending on when this review comes out. But as a sort of celebration of the work that he did, and also the fact that the kind of relevance and the importance of this synthesizer module, because it went on to kind of inform the 2-voice, the 4-voice, and then later Oberheim stuff. You know, that filter, I think because it didn't lose bottom end on the resonance, it had a really unique character, because probably a lot of people were using mini modes at the time because that was the first to market. And the thing about the SEM, it had a very unique sound, and GForce have done a great job in capturing it. Whether it's in the individual single voice mode, which is kind of quite a bold move, really, for them just to go, well, here you go, there's a mono voice, a mono synth, really as a kind of love letter to that original module. It's available now at $29.99. I think that goes up to $49.99 after a fixed period. I don't know what that period is, but worth checking out and getting, because obviously if you get this or you get the OBE, you're kind of essentially getting the same stuff. This does have a couple of features, that portamento and the dual sequencers, a little bit different, but you can share those patches between the OBE and the Oberheim SEM, the GForce Oberheim SEM. Anyway, that's it. Thanks very much for watching. Happy birthday, Tom. See you next time.